And we continue learning Dirshu Mishnah Bura Siman Kof Samach, and we're in the middle of Sif Beis, in which we discuss that which could passel the water from a Netilas Yadaim. Continues the Mechaber that im Hittel Behem Anachtaim Agluskin. If the baker dips into the water his bread, Perish Kikarais Lechem, Psulim, then that as well passels the water. Aval, however, im taval yadav emayim v'tach b'nei agluskim. Let's say he dips his hands into the water and then he smears it on the breads. So either he dips his hands into the water, or he takes a cup of water and puts that on it, uses a hand, he cups the water and he puts it on the bread. The remaining water, meaning, if I do what? I dip the bread into the water, then all the water is considered like it did malacha and it's all possible. But if I dip my hands into it and then I wipe the bread, or I take a little water out and put it on the bread, and then the remaining water is kosher. And therefore, they're kosher if they didn't change appearance. Says the Ramah, is the same halacha. So says the Mishnah Bura over here, Sivkatan Yod Dalid. Says the Mishnah Bura im Taval that if he dipped the bread inside of it, Taval, if he dipped his hands inside of it, Netilas Yadaim l'chod lo have malach. Very important. As often when we're going to have to eventually discuss, if I drink from a bottle, is the rest of the bottle able to be used? And someone might think no, but we're seeing here is, even if I have a bucket of water and I dip my hands in, that is not called the water was done malacha with it, they don't come disgusting. And it is kosher for Netilas Yadaim. Let's say your hands were not actually washed prior, so your hands had some level of tumah on them. It does not passel up the water. It doesn't make them tamik. Hagluskin, mine ugo shalachar yichas and derech latuach b'nei hamayim. They're cookies that you put some water on top of them after you make them. Sometimes you dip them in. Sometimes you dip your hands in and you smear on top of it. Just saying another level, that if you scoop the water out of it, hanisharim, the water that is left in the kli, but that which is in your hand, once you put it on the bread, then it is arinas v'melacha. Now, the water that the baker rinses his hands in, Sivkatan Yodaches. Says the Mishnah Bura, Distam Yadaim Askani is Beisa. Your hands are dealing with the bread Niki, and we assume they're clean. If you're busy braiding bread, then of course your hands aren't filthy. Then it's similar to which we saw in the previous year, which is what? Of washing kalim that will already washed, if it's not called doing melacha with them, and therefore the water will be kosher. Machvas abatzek, sarach leimar lo chash la melacha, v'efshem misham diyachal asiram, gam b'loy hadacha. Says the Mishnah Bura, what do you mean there's a little bit of dough on his hand? So what about the fact that that dough was washed off? Says the Mishnah Bura, that must not be called doing melacha. Why? Because you can take that off without the water. Taz argues it's called malacha because you wash your hands from the dough. So even though the Mechaber was lenient in this case, Mishnah Bura is pretty machmir. And over here in the Shartzia, in Mishnah Bura quotes Al Yerabah Derechayim V'chein Hiskim. So definitely seems like this would certainly not be lechatchila, and even if one can be mekel in a makom atzerich, is not so pashit as Mishnah Bura is quoting many achronim le chumra. We continue with Siv Gimel Mayim Shalifnei Hanapach, the water in front of the blacksmith. Aval Bishla Nishtana Marehem. Even though that water did not change its appearance, it is still possible. What is the reason that it is still possible? Says the Mechabim, and they should be Yodua, it's known. He takes the iron and he sticks it in the water to cool off the iron, which is called doing melacha. And similarly continues, the Mechaber water in front of the barber is what? So is it the same thing? Says the Mechaber, no. Im nishtanim mar'im, it's psulim, vim lav, it's kosher. If its appearance changes, it's basal. If not, it is kosher. Says the Mishnah Berurah, if cotton yutas l'shnei hasaper shemidiach sham lebam, they sometimes use it to wash with. Keim lach l'chtoim, they rinse off. I guess their comb and whatnot. Avlein l'chazaka. It's not for sure shemidiach sham l'chein ksheir misafik l'mam sif yud aleph. Therefore, misafik it's kosher like sif yud aleph. Says the Mechaber in sif dalad mayim sheshazmim etarnegolim oisha lokak. Water that the tarnegolim, that the chickens drink from it, oisha lokak, which was, as the Ramah explains, means what? Pir shatiyas akelev nikr lekika, like licking. The dog licks, laughs from him. Akelev yesh misha paisel. Some say it's possible. Vein dvarim there, and says Mechaber, no. Ella bein be'ilu bein b'chol asher behitma chayav ha'oif yesh lahachshir. The Mechaber is willing to be makel if any animal drank from the water. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sivkater Chaf Tarnegolim Oisha Lakak, or the dogs, if he amvur beisesi lav davka elu, not only these, Elahu adin b'chol beim achayev oiv chutz miyoyin, except for the yoyin, yesh misha paisel. So Mechaber quoted there, those that are apostles, Sivkater Chaf Alef, says the Mishnah Berurah, Dimadamina l'mayim shel paras chatos, similar to the water of the paras chatos, salam b'shtiyas beim achayev oiv. You can't use the water for the para aduma if an animal drink from it chutz miyoyin. If yesh mefarsh shamadam misham malacha. Why? Because it's considered that malacha was done with it if an animal ate from it. Very important. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what is the malacha? That when the animal picks up his head, it's the backwash that goes back in. Malacha, and these waters are considered that malacha was done. Themselves by malacha. So the das achumra is why, because of the backwash, therefore it's considered that malacha was done. Continues the Mishnah Berurah Sivkater Chav Beis, ve'ein dvarim nirin, that the Mechaber disagree. The dafko paras chatas themselves malacha al kol duhu. It's a din by the paras chatas. It says even by the paras chatos, it's not really called malacha was done. When Netilas Yadaim lo nafsu al yidei kol hamayim, all the water is not bottled in the spot, b'taruv vaysan, beruba til kameh, and therefore says Mishnah Berurah will be bottled in the tarayves as the water falls back in, and therefore it will be kosher. And the Sif concluded, as Mishnah Berurah explains, Sif Katel Chav Gimel, whether any animal drink from it, yesh lahachshir. Explains the Mishnah Berurah b'achroin chaluk b'inyan zeh. Ti b'tar negoyim v'chem v'shar chayis v'ayifais. Ksherim kedas Mechaber chanal. By Tarnegolim, we're all other birds. It's kosher according to the Mechaber. Aval b'shtiyas kelev v'chazir pasal misham miyos. A different psal, because the water is miyos. We always have to remember, number one is the water disgusting? If it's disgusting, I don't care what happened to it. Number two is, was malacha done with it? That's what we're discussing over here. Even by water that the dog or the chazir drank from. What if a snake drank from it? Water that was left uncovered. We're not worried nowadays that maybe snakes drink from it. A very important and misknown halacha. People think, I left the cup open. They even think it has to do with overnight. And then they say, I can't drink it the next day. Says the Mishnah Berurah, you left your water uncovered. Nothing to do with overnight, number one. And number two, it's kosher. Why? Because nowadays there are no snakes. And even according to those who are nizar, the Vilnagayin, which we know the Chazon Ish, Chaim Kanievsky was machmer linin tila in lahach. When you don't have to worry about Netilas Yadaim, the chumrah would only be for drinking. Mayim psulin shenisarvim and ksharim, betelim and miutam will be bottled. Mashlim afilu ravias, and we could be mashlam im loy nishtanu mar ehem. Says the Mechaber in Sif Hey. Ein melacha paiselas, melacha does not passel elu b'mayim she'uvim, only with poured waters. Bein she'im b'kli, bein she'im b'karka. V'loi b'mei mikvah, b'mayim b'oidam b'chubarim. A mikvah does not have this psal of work being done with the water. It says the Mishnah Berurah, Sivkot Chavdalad she'im b'karka, pirush afilu b'shas melacha minachas b'karka. While you're using the water, it's in the ground. Kim she'uvim b'tchila, melacha paiselas, therefore melacha apostles b'em. Now this would be called the question, is swimming called malacha being done with the water? Is the fact that you swam in that water, is that called malacha being done? If you went into the pool to cool yourself off, then you'd have a different issue. Then you'd have the issue, like we spoke about, that you used the water to cool off. Let's say you didn't. Is the fact that you swam in it, is that considered malacha? That's going to be a machlekes achrayim. It's going to come from right over here for the fact that it's mayim she'uvim that's in the karka. Lo b'mei mikos if kater chavei it linas yes malacha. V'linim nifslu mishtias behema yichelik bein shuvim lemei mikvah psulim doesn't make a difference whether it's shuvim or a mei mikvah, and it will be puzzle if an animal drinks from him. But that's only if you're taking water out of the mikvah to pour it on your hands. If you're diving in or you're putting your hands into the mikvah, then even if the animal drinks from it, it's changes colors. And we are running out of time, so let's just see some of the Dirshus over here. Let's begin. Maybe we won't. Can we get the Dirshus up? 1 second. We're having a minor issue. Here we go. Here we go. No. 1 second. Yeah, let's look at Dirshu number 23. It's actually going to Shar Tzion, which we didn't see, an important Shar Tzion, that the remaining water is not considered that Malacha was done with it, where the Berkei Yoifis in Rabbi Shem David is going to be Machmer. Actually, let's go back to, so says the Dirshu number 23, what if someone dips his hands? Says the Har Tzivi, L'chayr Yish L'dakti from the Shar Tzion over here, that all the waters is not going to be possible. Only shir amayim shenika b'em es yad of the amount that cleaned your hands, and that's what's done work. And therefore, that water will be bottled back into the larger waters. This will work for a swimming pool as well. However, from that which the Graz Shulchan Aruch writes, that if you dip your hands in the water in order to be matar them, it makes it consider that a malacha is being done. Then it would sound like that all the water is considered one water, and therefore you would have a problem, a bit of a machlekes over here. And he says to see the Mishnah Berurah prior, b'shem the Chazon Ish, the Pri Megadim, and the Chazon Ish is machmer in that case. Dirshu number 25 deals with the fact that when you're making dough, we assume that your hands are clean. Now says the Dirshu, with obvious implications, what if your hands are dirty and you put them in the water to clean them? Then it would passel. And similarly, if your hands are yadam b'lochlachis mamish, we're going to see, and you need to clean them, that's going to be considered that the passel the water. Continues the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Let's say you only put one finger in the water to clean it, still it will passel because it's considered doing work. But the Chazon Ish comes along and he says that the reason why the water is not considered pagum when you rinse your hands to clean it, the reason is because it's used for man, for kelim and oichlin. Avisham shel adam atzmai. But for you yourself, or aretz nasan lemnei adam, that's not considered that it's going to mess up the water, because that's the normal derech that your own water you are going to use. But only if you wash your hands with it, that would be a different scenario. And and then Dirshu gets very involved over here about the din of bittul. When the water goes back in, the Mishnah Berurah taught us that it's going to be bittul in the larger waters. Let's just see one more note over here, and then we'll call it a day. Over here, quotes the Dirshu. What about mayim in the Beis HaKisei? Says the Das Torah, lechatchil you should not wash your hands in it because it's mas l'shtias adam, and it's like water that a dog and a chazir drink from. On the other hand, says the Chazon Ish, says Rav Vosner, says Rav Chaim Kanievsky, water is not possible to Yadayim because it was in the bathroom. Similarly, the Ar Letzion, and I guess we could probably add on that in our bathrooms, people would even drink from the water, and therefore definitely would not possible. Now, whether you can actually wash your hands inside the bathroom, that we're going to see in Siman Kuf Samach Beis Mir Hashem. And now, of course, if you see that an actual snake drank from the water, then one should, of course, be machmir. And then Dirshu Vir quotes the Anhag of the Chazon Ish and the Stapler, as we mentioned, that they are makbid on Gilui with regard to drinking. They're all makbid on Gilui for Netilas Yadaim, says the Kaf Chayim. If you're able to be machmir, you should be machmir. This is the reason why they sell those who keep the water next to their bed in the cup. Then 1 second it's going to be Gilui, so they sell a cover for it. Okay, high levels of Chasidus. We'll stop over here and we'll pick it up in the next year. B'siyata Dishmayo.